we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello, and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I'm your host, Kim Miller-Hershon. I have my guest today, Diane Wheeler. We are going to have so much fun. Diane is actually a tech founder, and she is the founder and CEO of Home Hub AI. And it's a tech startup creating an ecosystem of smart homeowners. After 25 years in the world of banking, she found her voice to carve out in an industry that empowers homeowners to track, protect, and grow the value of their home. And Diane, we're just so excited to talk to you today, to learn from you. But before we do that, I have a random question for you. So, what is your completely non useful talent that you have?
Oh, Kim, thank you for having me. Thank you, audience, for listening to this. I'm really excited to be here. And this question comes at a really funny time because I have a talent of being creative, and sometimes it gets me in trouble. So I don't always use it. And that is that when I dream, like almost you can take my dream and put it on the big screen and make a movie out of it. And I have apparently been one of the few that dream A in color, B out of body experience, if you will, and C in something that I can actually remember and articulate. And so it literally runs through my head in real. So I don't know. That's probably pretty
Yeah, I love it. I don't know. You never know, right? So, my totally like fun but totally not useful talent is that I can come up with song lyrics to almost any situation and anything somebody says. I can come up with a verse from a song that relates to what you're talking about.
Oh, but Kim, that is part of being an auditory learner, just so you know. So it's not unuseful, but I can 100% think of ways where it would be maybe
Yeah.
considered that way, depending on.
Well, Diane, though, here's the rub. I can't sing. So I can't hold a tune. So it's that piece of it, right? So I have to
Yeah.
do it mostly in my head. But what's very funny is it's something that I started doing out loud, like with my kids when they were young,
Yeah.
just because it would come into my head. And now what's very funny is that my kids are grown, and whenever we're together, we
Mhm.
always break out in song because it's always related to something.
Who I think does that is Pentatonics, the group.
Oh, yeah, the a cappella group or
Yes.
yeah.
There was a movie that I watched recently. I've been on a holiday movie binge, and there was one where they literally did the a cappella anytime they were together answering a question and it would come out. But of course, they sing amazing.
There is that.
Right.
There is that.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I am really excited to talk to you today about your journey because it's really been quite an evolution for you. And before we get too far into this, so tell us a little bit in more detail about what you've created because it's an app, right? And the app's in beta. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. And it's a live beta. So actually, anybody can download it today from the App Store, Home Hub AI, all one word, really cool orange colored logo. Anyway, thanks for that. So here's essentially what happened. I was buying a house, I was on my own, and having come from banking, there is so much stress, pressure, emphasis, white glove treatment put on the transaction. And once that transaction is finished, your realtor gets paid, the mortgage person gets paid, the title company gets paid, everybody does what they need to do. You get your key, you open up the door, you walk on in, and you are ghosted. And by that, I mean, at that point in time, there's nobody sitting there checking in saying, hey, don't forget to do this maintenance, or hey, don't forget to change this filter, or by the way, you need to keep this document or that document, etc. And I just was looking for something to help me. I had moved quite a distance away from my network of people. From Ohio, I'm now in Florida. And that came with some challenges of just really not knowing who I could call, not knowing what I didn't know. Imagine calling a handyman and going, I think I need something, but I can't really articulate and tell you what it is. Because a lot of what we think about is preventative, right? So at that point in time, I couldn't find something that had the homeowner at the center of the universe. I didn't find someone who said, gosh, this is all about the home's story. And I had actually had a Carfax alert to get my oil changed. And I thought to myself, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to have a home fax? And that's where my journey started. And for all of you that have ever pulled together your Carfax stuff, ours is a little different because it allows the homeowner to track. It allows the homeowner to really add their notes, add their warranties, their documentation, so that the homeowner really is the one that is in charge and empowered. And then we have a really cool AI agent named Val, which stands for valuable. And Val takes the information and gives you handy tips and notifications and answers questions. And it's just really targeted and specific for that home, that environment. So that's what I've
Right.
created.
Yeah, it makes so much sense because I think it's very true. Listen, if the toilet won't flush, you need to do something about that. But you don't know what you don't know. And you don't really necessarily know all the things that you really need to do to maintain the home before something breaks.
This journey has been incredible. And when you think about being in tech, often people come up with the fact you have to be a coder or you have to be the person who understands all of the connections, and we'll call it the widgets and stuff. I came at it from a background of, gosh, if I want to maintain the value of my home, I better maintain my home. If I need to maintain my home, I better figure out what I need to do. And so I came at it from a very different angle than most tech
Right.
people. And that has allowed me the ability to truly say to my tech folks, no, that doesn't make sense. And that allowed us to really come at the architecture of how the data is stored to say, no, that doesn't go there, or this isn't intuitive. So we've done our beta in 2025, and we had a lot of traction. We had over 300 people giving us feedback, letting us know what we had to make better. And so we are looking forward to a huge 2026 and just absolutely hitting the ground. It's available nationwide. And the more people that use it, the better it becomes.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Let me ask you this because again, you came from a very traditional, right, banking, a very traditional industry.
Right.
What did you think, either from because your bosses and mentors and the people in leadership in the bank, or maybe even before that, like what was modeled for you, like in your family, about what success looks like? What did you think early on that you're like, yeah, no, that's actually not gonna work for me?
So my father used to say to me that he raised me with the ability to say, you can't do that. And then he would stand back and watch me make it happen. And when you go through the corporate world, there are so many rules and
Mhm.
policies and procedures. And especially in banking, it is such a hierarchy and there's a lot of traditions for
Right.
good purpose. But some of them, the traditions are the traditions because they've been the traditions.
That's right.
And so I think one of the things that really has not truly served me is having to get permission before I move forward when I clearly see a pathway.
Mhm.
Think that have you ever worked in a very collaborative organization? Collaboration is fantastic until it
Mhm.
prevents you from making a decision, because collaboration means that the organization truly has to have trust in its people, which means it's not a punitive organization. It has to be an organization based on learning to move forward and admitting mistakes and catching them as quickly as you can. But it's not about the person that made the mistake. It's about, now we understand this is not the right way forward. So let's take the information and move forward. And that is not something that exists in many organizations, regardless if they say it or not, because it relies on that person, that trust, that sense of ownership of whatever project, of whatever policy, procedure, of whatever it happens to be, in order to really make it work. And I don't know that we spend enough time with our workforces building that kind of trust. I don't know that we spend enough time as humans building that kind of trust with other humans that aren't our inner network. That's definitely something where I think the old fashioned, here's the corporate ladder, here's the hierarchy, here's the policies and procedures. I really think that has not been something that has served many organizations well, and certainly not me.
Right. I would think you spent a lot of time in that hierarchy. And on
Mhm.
the one hand, your experience might have been, okay, I am done with this. But also, too, there's a familiarity. And it's interesting. Like, I think one of the hardest things for people who have been in corporate to then be an entrepreneur is the lack of structure.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think the decision making is actually a different issue, right? The ability to be able to make a decision and move forward. And so it actually sounds like that's something you've really brought to fruition for yourself.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the team of people around me, we are talking about that now. In fact, I just had a conversation that I would prefer not to be the tester of new features, because I would like to protect and preserve my value of being the client from that lens. And so we really had that conversation of, I'm not going to hold someone accountable for a misstep, because the misstep happened in the communication of what the step was supposed to be, oftentimes. And so when you really start thinking about it, you do have to make certain the people that are making decisions on behalf of your organization are not only highly skilled, but also have the right temperament in order to help you carry forward. And
Mhm.
that is something that I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by some of the most amazing team members. But it wasn't on accident, because I knew what I was looking for.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And I think, well, it's always interesting, right? What clear communication looks like. Like, I can't tell you how many clients, and honestly, I've done this with my own team. Like, I am so clear about what I want and what I need. And it's very interesting to have it like reflected back to you. And you're like, oh, I guess it's only clear to me. But I think what's interesting, we have this discussion a lot, is that leaders' experience of that oftentimes is it's the other person's fault
Right.
because you are so clear, right? Like in your own mind of what you like, what the direction is or whatever. You're like, if somebody else doesn't execute on that, like that's on them. I think
Right.
oftentimes it's on you. You made a lot of assumptions.
I am going to go ahead and share something I learned several years ago, is that we judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their delivery of action. And when we think about that, it aligns perfectly with what you just said. Because if I intended for this, then that's what I have an expectation. And so when you really start thinking about communication, you have to reflect on that game we all played as children, telephone. And that communication from one level still has a filter. And actually, it's two filters. It's your speaking ability or writing ability or however you're communicating it, but then it's that other person's community or communication to pick it up and then drive forward with it. And so It's already been through two filters. And if you think that those filters are perfect, no. And we know that because of the game telephone, if for no other reason. And so
Right.
there is something to be said about repeat back to me what you think I'm asking for, just to be
Mhm.
sure that you are on the same page. And as adults, sometimes we feel we never have enough time to do it the first time right, but we always have enough time to do it again. But we don't. And that's what gets us mad. And so
Yeah.
that's where I really think it goes back to we can only control what we can control. And I would rather focus on my own self and how I can get better and improve than worrying about trying to be punitive. I think that's my best word today against someone else who I do believe human beings are often all trying to do their best. And so when you really put yourself in that space, it's not that they're trying to mess up. It's not that they're trying to fail or they're trying to create an issue of some sort. Usually people are trying to do the best. And if it didn't come out that way, what is the intention behind it? If the intention's good, then there's a lack of skill or a lack of know-how or a lack of being on the same page.
Right. That leads actually really nicely into the next thing that I wanted to ask you. How many years have you been doing home AI?
So we are completing our second year in Home Hub AI.
Right.
And I'm just going to go ahead and share that that is actually came out of a company that was our boots on the ground, go do maintenance chores for people. So I've been in this genre of home maintenance for 3 years.
Yeah, so that's incredible. The fact that you got to where you are in the amount of time, I think that is amazing.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this. Underneath, what is it that you still struggle with?
I love that question because recently I pulled a coach on. And when you look at an executive coach, is what their official title is. One of the things I've really had to understand about myself is that if I don't know how to do something, I tend to put it on the plate last. And sometimes you call that procrastination, but it's not procrastination for the sake of procrastination. It's procrastination because I haven't figured out how to do it. And I am a hands on learner. So asking for help is not something that is extremely intuitive until I'm so to the point that I can't do it that I'm like, no, I can't. And so one of the reasons I brought her on was to help hold me accountable for doing the things that end up on the bottom of my list for too many days. And sometimes it's talking it through, sometimes it is just asking for insight of maybe a better way to accomplish something. Sometimes it's just give me a little bit of a permission to take some respite so I'm not constantly thinking about something. But that is something that I just had this conversation. I've had a lot of conversations lately where, high performers or people in leadership tend to perform at levels, 100% all the time. And often it's because we know we're capable, we know we can. So you have to be very thoughtful as far as if you're not taking a break because you don't know how to do something, and that's in my case, then take the break because it might come to you afterwards, or it might be something that you can say, hey, look, I just need a little guidance on this, and then I can go ahead and move forward. And then you really do have your break. So you have to watch how full your plate gets, and you have to watch whatever it is that holds you back from being balanced. And that's just
Mhm.
where I'm at. But I have to laugh because I have an MBA. I should know all this stuff. They don't teach this.
Yeah.
You know,
That word should that's a dangerous word.
yes.
Yeah.
And so I would advise any person that is in the shoes of feeling like they're overworking or that they're just mentally taxed or stressed or whatnot. There are people out there that are really good at just seeing you and saying, hold on a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I am an executive coach, so I definitely understand what you are talking about. And it
Yeah.
was interesting. I was working with a client this morning, and one of the things came up about we're talking really about manifesting what you want. And I think a really important piece of all of this is around mindset. And I will remind everyone what I reminded her today is that you are worthy of having what you want because you're There is nothing that you need to do, an action that you need to take to be deserving of the success that you want, right? The fact that you exist, that you are, is enough, right? You deserve it because you're you. There's no proof, there's no action that you need to take. And I think that it's just a really good reminder when you get in these stuck places. And that I love the idea because I think we all get really stuck in the, well, I am smart, so I should. I'm accomplished, so I should. I have an MBA, so I should. And in a lot of ways, right? Like you're your biggest critic. Oftentimes, what I will say to myself and suggest that my clients do is if you didn't have a story around this, right? If this was just a task, what's the
Yeah.
next thing you would do?
Yeah.
Let's take the emotion out of it. Let's take the story out of it, right? If it's just something to do, what would you do?
Yeah. I think that is so well said. Anytime we have emotion, it clouds our path forward. And that emotion is exactly what you're talking about. It's the feeling of stuck. It's the frustration. It's the I don't know. It's the I'm not worthy. I don't matter, whatever it happens to be. And I've always thought to myself, it's like a pressurized soda can. And if you pop the top, and then all of a sudden, the bubbles escape. Now you can drink it. And I feel like sometimes that is exactly what we're talking about. You can drink the situation once the bubbles are ebbed off. And that's what I think of as emotion and feeling.
Love that. All right. If you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, that's one outdated belief that you'd throw away, and what would you replace it with?
So I think that it is extremely outdated to think of hierarchy. I mentioned that a little earlier, and that this person has to follow that or whatever it happens to be. I personally think that people, if you look back to generations, we had a generation that lived to work, and then we said we work to live. And now I think we have a generation that has really learned it's all about balance. So it's all about, I want to give my all no matter what I'm doing. And so you have to really cut through a lot of the red tape of, I call it hierarchy, but sometimes it's just, I've got to get permission from that person or do this or do that or whatever. And I think that is something that we just have to be a lot more thoughtful about, allowing someone to bring their whole self to work and all of the things that means, because all of the experiences that a person has, regardless if they're from childhood, if they're from their personal world, if it's from a hobby they do, it adds to their power to do whatever it is they're going to do. It's all related in some
Hmm.
way, shape, or form. And so I think that we have to be a lot more focused on how to bring that together and forget about being a human resource and instead being something that is just a human being that happens to have a really cool skill set that matches what you need to have done. And that's
Hmm.
really what we have to get back to.
I love that. So well said. The other thing I'm curious about for you is there are not that many female tech founders,
Mhm.
right? And you're also non technical, which in the tech world is like a dirty word, right? And what's so interesting about that, because again, I have my fair share of clients in the tech space.
Right.
And so often the tech founder is the technical person who is not the best leader and manager of people. And oftentimes it's the investors or the board that ends up ousting them and putting in an actual like CEO that can actually run the company.
Yes.
But here's my question to you. For instance, have you gone out for any funding? Are you or any other forum where you're finding some gender discrimination?
Oh, absolutely. And so being in the banking world, I found that anyway.
Yeah.
And when you look at that type of an industry, you really have an equal number of males and females, but the ranking is different. So the females really make up a little bit of a higher percentage, actually quite a bit of a higher percentage on the lower level jobs. And then you have the folks who are male gendered in the upper jobs. And I have run into that so many times, but I won't bore you with those stories. What I'm going to say is that I really found my voice when I started to understand what design thinking is. And design thinking
Mm.
is University of South Florida has a certificate program. I was part of the program advisory board when I was at the last bank, and it is all about designing for the client. And when you really start understanding where clients have needs and problems that you can solve, it doesn't matter what you have in your arsenal of tips or tricks or tech or anything, because their problem exists right now with everything that's out there. That kind of levels the playing field when you understand that. And it goes back to at some point in time, we have all kind of felt like, hey, you know what? I need a widget. I need a something, right? Taking selfies. I need a stick, whatnot. And so when you think about being an innovator, simply says, I can think creatively. I don't have to be the manufacturer. And so anyone that's ever really created an idea for something has the ability to stand in whatever audience they're going towards. And I actually had someone say to me, there are two types of pitches. There's the business case pitch, and then there is the person who is the tech wizard pitch. And you'll always go with the business case pitch, and it's going to be more compelling to the people listening because they're looking for how do I make money? And you're essentially saying, here's the business case behind it. And so, with that said, I can see why some people might feel intimidated by the crowd, but we have to remember that at the end of the day, it really has to do with the confidence in yourself to move forward is going to be what people gravitate towards, not necessarily what credentials you have. And I'm short too. I'm like 5'3.5" when I stand up really straight and I do my yoga. And so I can honestly say that when I walk into rooms, there's sometimes when I have to really look to find people and I just put a big smile on. I tend to go find somebody who looks friendly. I give a compliment. And next thing I tend to have people going, oh, have you met or do you know? And I get taken around to different places. And that's been my strategy, combat that. But I do think the sexism exists. I think the gender bias exists. And I'm not going to say that it is something we will ever probably solve, but we all have a choice as to how much we pay attention to it. And I do know that the men that are on my team are incredible and have really started to open their eyes to what females tend to see sometimes. And so I really think we all have to talk about it. What is the experience?
Right.
What can we do better? And I think that's going to be what helps to get everybody to move forward.
Love that. So, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that's helped you grow Home Hub AI?
So I don't have to put in an 8-hour day. I don't have to chain myself to my desk an 8-hour day. And in fact, I'm going to give a little secret. So when I really need to tap into some creativeness, I dream in these creative things. I tend to get my paintbrush out and I start to really start painting for myself. And in my background, if you can see it, I actually painted this picture. And so when you really start understanding that every single person has the time frame that they're the most productive, that actually allows you to work smarter, not harder. Because if I'm working smarter for a few hours and then I go do something and I come back and I'm working smart again, I'm probably accomplishing the same amount of stuff that people in an 8-hour day might accomplish. So it's not about a time clock. It's not about a to-do list. We will always have time crunches. We will always have additional to-dos out there. It is really about figuring what is something that you can accomplish to the best of your ability, not multitask, actually unitask, which is not something we mostly do these days, and get it done and then move on to the next thing so that you don't
Mhm.
sit and wait or
Right.
sit and look
Hmm.
for something. So I think that's probably something that
Hmm.
has been a huge shift for me.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because we have so many generations in the workplace right now. That's an issue that comes up a lot of boomers and Gen X saying these kids don't know how to work. They don't want to work hard. And I think really they just don't want to work in traditional ways. And so the more that we can allow them to get the job done versus make them sit there and twiddle their thumbs for however long it is. I would agree with you. I think Tim Ferriss wrote the 4 Hour Work Week, right? Like many years ago. I think it's taken everybody a long time to catch up with that mentality.
And if you look at it, the reason we have a 40-hour work week isn't because that was the end all be all or that had anything to do with productivity. That was just part of what legislation said. If you work over that, you get to be paid time and a half. That was never a speed limit. Let's be honest, there was never a speed limit. It was really just more of a guide for giving the workers a little bit more of a benefit for the longer hours.
Right.
And somehow we adopted it. And again, working smarter, not harder. Now, if you have a place of business that people are coming in, it has to be
Some standard hours, right?
yeah, you have to have the people to welcome the folks in and whatever happens to be.
Right.
I almost used the word manned, and I was like, no, that's gender biased, but it's not. It's just a word we have, right? So anyway, when I think about some of those types of things, I was actually thinking about having people, this is way back when I was in the banking world, tell me, would they rather work 3 12s in a half day? Would they rather work 4 10s or a traditional 8-hour workday? And when everybody was able to choose what fit them best, boy, did we have a lot accomplished. And those are things that I think we have to really look at how to, again, understand your humans that are helping you to accomplish your mission. And it's not about them as a resource, it's about them as a human first. And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest message. And
Right.
people want to succeed, they want to perform. I wholeheartedly believe that. And so when you give them every tool or every ability to do that, then I think you'll end up being surprised.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right, one last question for you. It's a two-parter. And this has to do with imposter syndrome. There's two things that I'd love for you to discuss. One is when is it going to come up for you? And what I'm talking about really is either that lack of confidence, that like trigger, that sort of panic response.
Oh, yeah.
And when that happens, how do you get yourself back to neutral and or like moving forward?
Oh, yeah. Imposter syndrome. The part where you feel like a little girl putting your mommy's dress up in heels and whatever on and moving forward. I think it tends to show up in me when I am doing something that is very not authentic. And it's interesting. I've never been the person that's the wallflower that sits back and waits for things to happen. I've always been the one who says, okay, let's go. I actually am a manifester. That's one of the latest and greatest terms out there. So I make things happen. And when I'm not making something happen, I often have to talk myself out of feeling lazy. How about that for you?
Yeah.
We all need rests, we all need breaks. But I think that's something where, especially growing up, I always learned that because I spoke up much, because I would wear my suit to work, because I would do things that were where I wanted to be, not necessarily where I was, I had been told you're too much or you're too loud or you're too opinionated or you're too whatever it happened to be. And for me, it was all about finding a bigger ocean because I felt like maybe I am too big to be in this small area. Maybe I do need to get to a bigger area in order to feel a little more
Mhm.
kind of within the groove. So I think imposter syndrome really does happen a lot. I think that it comes from being inauthentic. Anytime you have to mask whoever your true self happens to be. And that's something that is taught to us as a young kid. So I was in learning and development for a long time, and hands on learning is actually one of the more common learning styles. At least that's what I found through all my years of talking with people. Hands-on learning means you have the person in your classroom that is participating, that is talking, that wants to read every paragraph, that wants to go ahead and be the kid chosen to do the experiment or whatnot. And so if you say to the kid, sorry, you can't, or you're being too much, you now are telling them that they can't be their inauthentic or their authentic self. Same thing with the person who is auditory. They sing a lot, or they are constantly having white noise or their music on, or they're not taking any notes. And you tell them, you have to write this down. No, the cadence of your voice, the lyricism, the way you repeat things, everything is how they learn. And so if you tell them, no, you can't do that, you're teaching them to be someone they're not. And that is something that I think really creates that imposter syndrome in us all. So we have to look back at who are we and how do we get back to being who we are at the base self.
Mhm.
Find the audience that will celebrate you, find the audience that will support and chime in, because that's when you feel the best, is when you
Mhm.
feel like you've got your tribe around you, that you feel like you're just able
Right.
to be who you are.
I love that, Diane. And I would say that in order to make that happen for yourself, if you are around a lot of people who don't lift you up, it is time to make some changes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Without apology, because you are worth it. And and even if those people are your family, and I'm not saying, listen, it may be the healthiest thing for you to take a break from your family. If you feel like that isn't something that you either can or want to do, then you talk about the weather, right? Like
Yeah.
when you have a startup, you have a great idea, and because this happens, right? And your family is afraid because they want you to have a paycheck, right?
Correct.
And here, though, I think is the important thing. And I think it's a mistake that we make relative to what you just talked about, all these messages that we get is understand who you're talking to. You can love them. Don't talk about your business to them, right? If you're not going to get the kind of support that you need, they're coming from a place of love, but that doesn't give them permission to draw you down because of their fear.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those feelings. Fear is a feeling word. And I love the fact that you say you don't have to completely sever the relationship. It's not about, I hate to say extremes, it's not about black and white, right? In the majority of cases, we'll qualify.
Exactly.
But you're right. You do talk about the things where you can meet on the same ground. And that's part of what I've learned is the platinum rule. It used to be teach others the way you want to be treated. That was the golden rule. And now we have to raise ourselves to treat others the way they want to be treated. And just, I wouldn't expect my brother, who was an engineer, super smart. He was working with the space program and stuff. I wouldn't expect him to talk with me about the details of what he's doing because he knows I'd be in left field. What about that X? What about that Y? What about that? I have no idea. And so we have to understand what people can relate to. And so it may be something that you talk through in your startup or whatever, say, oh, yeah, I attended this event. There's some amazing people. Did you know that someone's achieved whatever accomplishment? And now you're tailoring the conversation where it's not that you're not who you are. You're just putting yourself forward in the place that somebody can relate to. And that ends up making it easier to be around multiple people that just may not get it, right? They just may not
Right.
get it. So, yeah.
And then you've got to, just like you said, you've got to find your tribe, right?
Yes.
You know what is interesting? I was talking to somebody about my experience and really building a foundation for what's next. And what she said to me, which I thought was so interesting, is that in Chinese
Yeah.
horoscopes and numerology or whatever it is, this was the year of the snake. And this was the year of sheds its skins. And then next year is the year of creation and of really, it's a new beginning. And I just loved that because I feel like that has definitely been my experience. I think it's been a lot of my clients' experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things, to relate it back to what you're saying, that I think moving into this new phase, whatever this looks like for you, is to really think about who is it that you want to surround yourself with. And if you don't feel loved and supported for not just who you are, but who you want to be,
Yeah.
then it's time to really expand that circle and find your people, right?
Mhm.
I think that's a great note for us to end on here. Diane, thank you so much wisdom. I already
This
know that you are moving into your extreme growth phase. So excited. If people would be so moved, and they're in the United States, right? And give us the parameters. What are the parameters?
right now, the app, again, Home Hub AI, all one word, cute icon with the orange background. Kind of looks like the color on my screen here. Essentially, anyone that has the ability to download an app, regardless of what part of the country, they can go ahead and download it. It is in English right now. So I am going to go ahead and say that. And right now we have it for residential homes. I haven't yet built a castle in there, so I'm not sure about Scotland or Ireland or whatever. There's definitely ways that people can go ahead and put their address in, and it will come up with based on the Google map, right? It really is available. And what we're doing, our beta year, we have wanted to say thank you to every single person that has hopped on board with us. And so we have permanently waived the fee for anybody hopping on. Now, if you email us at homehubai.info, that's our website, and you say, I listened to your podcast with Kim, I will get you a code. If that's why you downloaded it and you're in 2026, 2027, whatever it is, I will get you a code and I will honor that. So that's my words.
Love that. All right. We're making deals. We're making
Yes,
deals.
making deals. And with that said, as we move into next year, Val is going to be somebody that is our icon, and she only gets better when we get better. And so give her a shout out. There's going to be a place that you can ask her questions, that you can give comments. We love, love, love that. And we just want everybody to be part of the journey because, again, we are very customer design focused. We want to know what your issues are so we can try to solve them with Home Hub AI.
Love that. All right, friends. And my ask for you is sign up for my newsletter. It comes out once a week. It's short, it's got one thing in it. And I think it's really useful. We've gotten good feedback from it. And there's always a fun picture in there. You never know what I'm up to. That's fun too. So, you have been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I am your host, Kim Miller-Hershon, with my guest today, Diane Wheeler. Subscribe, share, all the stuff. Go out there and be a better human.
Where cliches come to retire.